Today, as I said, we're going to talk about another aspect of our summer program, the magic of sunset, kind of further exploring the sacredness of the natural world in our daily lives. So as we discussed last week, if you were here, more of us witness sunsets than sunrises. I think that might be for a couple of reasons. One, we tend to have schedules that keep us in our houses early in the morning or still sleeping for that matter at sunrise. Well, we tend to kind of be out and about more as the sun sets. Hopefully that's true for you too. But okay, so last week I checked your awareness of the time of sunrise. So let's see, does anyone know the typical time of sunset here at the end of May? Anybody know?
8:30.
It's actually 8:20. 8:20 or so, right? I think it's 8:17 tonight or something like that. So we're typically outside more regularly at 8:20 than we are at 6:40 in the morning. But I think another reason that we notice sunsets more is because we're on the west coast of Florida and the sun sets in the west. And being so close to the beach, we are oriented more to the west in our daily awareness. But there's something about being able to see the sun interact with the horizon. That's what draws our attention. I think if we lived on the East Coast, would we see more sunrises? I think maybe, because it would draw our attention more. But here we tend to watch for sunsets because our sunrises are often kind of blocked visually by trees and buildings, and we can't actually see the sun breaking into the day on the horizons. That feel about right? Yeah, so we just don't like things that block our view. I think we're kind of glory snobs, if you will. Meaning if the sunset isn't just glorious and special, it isn't noteworthy. A sunset has to be special in kind of some way to grab our attention. I know we'll be driving down the highway or somewhere around the time of sunset, and one of us will point out to the other one, oh, the sun is setting. But if the clouds and the sky's not just so, we don't really allow ourselves to keep focusing on it. We just keep going on with our day. It's boring and an ordinary sunset, so to speak. But I wonder if every sunset might have some magic in it. So one of the realities of being a human being is that we truly get lost in our daily lives and all the things that occupy our time. We get caught up in, what do we get caught up? Our schedules, our meetings, our work, our hobbies, our chores, our duties, our phones, our games, whatever it is that's got our attention. We find ourselves completely unconscious in our relationships and situations day after day, so much that we miss the bigger life with a capital L, and it's happening around us, including God moments like sunsets. And it's almost like we have blinders on, and it really takes something stunning to grab our attention away from the very important things that we have going on. If we could just remember these words by the author C. Joy Bell C. She wrote, "Never waste any amount of time doing anything important when there is a sunset outside that you should be sitting under," right? So last week, remember I shared the special story of the sunrise over Haleakala, Maui, a nice story about that back in 1999. So I thought, okay, I'm going to share a special story about a memorable sunset from my personal life with you too. So here's the craziest thing. So I have on my computer my journal, my personal journal that goes back to 2006. So literally 20 years, no exaggeration, 20 years. And I use the search feature to find the word sunset, to see what would come in. And here's the most remarkable thing. It shocked me. In all the years in my journal, I had never typed the word sunset until May of 2020, when Terry and I shared our first intentional sunset together. 14 years of no comment about a sunset. I was stunned. All the sunsets with my child, it just had not been memorable enough to make a note of it. Since then, I've made journal entries about several sunsets, including one that I shared with my mother on a boat for her 80th birthday. our wedding, sunset wedding, that was important too. But it just goes to show you that without intentionality, sunsets can go by day after day without note for 20 years. It was crazy. But collectively, this summer, we are going to hold hands and we are going to intentionally live this summer. And that means that we're going to try to stay awake and aware throughout these next 3 months to notice more. Now, if you're like me, unless it's in my calendar to go see a sunset, I most likely won't see a sunset. And I think that's a little sad because just like sunrises, sunsets have some spiritual lessons embedded in them. And I invite us to be mindful of them all this summer long. So what if we decided to engage with sunsets and let them teach us as we meet spirit and ourselves at the end of each day, just like we talked about the morning spirit time last week in the beginning of the day. So sunsets allow us to practice some things. And one is embracing impermanence every single day. Impermanence is one of the hardest truths of life to accept, isn't it? Nothing physical is permanent. And sunsets remind us of that truth. So on this day, where we have set aside to celebrate one of our beloved's life who is no longer with us, we are reminded of that impermanence, aren't we? Right? The phrase, "this too shall pass," applies to hard things we want to end more quickly. We can say, "this too shall pass." But it also applies to the cherished things that we never want to end. And as we watch the sun that we've enjoyed all day slip beneath the horizon, we can mindfully remember that nothing is permanent. It is such a powerful practice of non-attachment. Aya Kema wrote, "Everything in life is given to you for a short period of time to enjoy, to learn from, to appreciate, and to love, but never to keep. Make no attachment so you can flow freely." I love that reminder. Sunsets are an invitation to make no attachment. As we release the day and the sun itself, we let go and know that something else will show up tomorrow. And sunsets naturally also invite us into a space of reflection and gratitude, watching the sky shift into beautiful colors and into gradual darkness. We experience awe. And it's easy to feel gratitude that the sun carried us through another day, and pause to remember and reflect on the good that was present in this single day and even in our bigger perspective of life. Pausing to feel that deepest thank you and connect with appreciation. One of the sweetest vibrations that we are given is a practice that we can indulge in at the end of every day if we take the time to do it. Author Melody Beattie wrote, "Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow." In other words, daily gratitude practice at the end of the day helps make the passage of time and mark it, and keeps us mindful of the cyclical nature of the rhythm of time. Just like the sunrise taught us that life is cyclical, the sunset reminds us for the second time in a day that life is cyclical. Life gives way to darkness, darkness gives way to light. What goes around comes around. How have we spent our day? How we spent our day influences how we spend our night. But we can also pause at sunset and release the day before we go into the night. Have you ever wanted a day to last forever? Have you ever had one of those special days you're like, "Oh, I just don't want it to end"? Maybe a sweet, impossibly perfect day. But it is impossible to hold on to it. We cannot stop the sun from dipping below the horizon. A sunset gently reminds us to surrender the illusion of control. And I know some people in here really like that control thing. What we can do is we can control our reaction to the sunset, but not the sunset itself. The most beautiful thing to remember is that while we are not in control, there is an inherent intelligence and balance in all things, and we have the power to align ourselves with that and not resist changes when they come. One of the lessons of a sunset is that behind every sunset is a bigger message to finish what we have started. As the day comes to an end, we're reminded that all things must come to an end, and we have a role to play in the conclusion of things. I think it's easier for us to remember that we have to start things. We have to take that first step. We have to initiate what we want to manifest. We have to be mindful of the starting line. Those are the messages of sunrise, but sunset says, hey, you have to bring things to a close too. And the more intentional we can be as we approach the end of a chapter, the more we can invite spirit, that deeper part of ourselves, to be a part of the conclusion. Sunsets remind us that endings can be peaceful. Endings can be colorful and memorable and beautiful. Sunsets do not rush. They soften and linger, don't they? Sunset endings give you the chance to take photographs and commemorate the passing of the thing that is leaving. You know, so often human beings don't know how to end things gracefully. We often don't know how to exit stage right without drama, do we? And think about the ways people storm out of relationships or quit their jobs or make a scene as they leave. But sunsets remind us that it doesn't have to be that way when we let things naturally end and when we allow our souls to guide us through those conclusions. Maybe you are anticipating the ending of something in your own personal life. Maybe a situation is coming to a close, or maybe it's time to land the proverbial plane you've been flying for a while, or maybe there's an impending graduation or a move or an inevitable loss on the horizon. Those are symbolic sunsets of life, and we have a spiritual nature within ourselves that can spiritually face the west and intentionally witness the light leaving a situation with love and intention. Those are just a few of the spiritual messages offered to us in a sunset every day. And again, wherever you may go, the sun is going to set, and you will get to decide each day whether you will meet spirit and yourself in the mindfulness to receive the messages it has to offer or not, and just keep driving. So how do we be more intentional about sunsets? One idea is to set an alarm on your phone each morning to remind you to step outside about 10 minutes just before the sun is going to set later that day, to kind of give yourself a moment and some space to say goodbye to the day. What a practice that would be, to pause, to remember that impermanence is the truth of life, that gratitude is available in each day, that life is cyclical, and that how we end things is as important as how we begin them. And just like I invited you to share a sunrise with each other, share your sunsets too. Post photographs of the sunsets you mindfully appreciate, and in the caption perhaps write one small gratitude or a spiritual truth you may have remembered in that sunset today. If a sunset gets your attention, share it with someone else. Say, hey, look, the sun's setting. Here's a sunset that really got our attention. Picture doesn't do it justice. This sunset occurred on August 22nd, 2021, and many of us here shared that particular sunset. You remember that we had a community outing to Treasure Island to enjoy the Sunset Drum Circle together that day, August 22nd, 2021. One of the most spectacular sunsets of my life, and I got to share it with some of you. And the drum circle was a powerful experience, it really was, but the sunset itself was just the star of the evening. And my intention is that we get to share some sunsets together again this summer, especially on the exact same date, August 22nd, when we have our cruise finale together at the end of the summer. And I wonder what Spirit has in store for us 5 years later. It is a summer to remember that we are souls who have come together to learn spiritually and to live every day as an outlet for God. We talked about that in Sacred Cup this morning, to be a channel for God to show up wherever we go. And in the words of our founder, Ernest Holmes, he wrote, "There is ever pressing against us the dynamic force of that which paints the sunset and causes the soft glow of the evening twilight that sings in the bird and plays in the child and proclaims itself at the level of our recognition of it. Every person is an outlet for the divine." That's what Ernest Holmes wrote. And here's the thing. We've each been given the extraordinary privilege of incarnating as human beings, which the Tao Te Ching says is filled with 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. We have each been given the brilliant colors of sunrises and sunsets to either enjoy or ignore, to notice and appreciate, or to slip by without fanfare. We have been given the pleasure of the taste of good food in our mouth, but without intentionality, we can go through our meals barely noticing the life that we are consuming. We can go through this life being serenaded by music and by the sound of laughter, or we can slip into irritation of any sound that we did not purposefully choose. We have the ability to experience the summer smells of fresh tomatoes and suntan lotion and honeysuckle and magnolias, but those scents will pass us by if we aren't paying attention. And we've been given skin to touch and fur babies to hold and sticky fruit to enjoy, all pleasures of being human. So we can either be lost in a small state of consciousness, what Buddhists call the body of fear, or we can be in the consciousness of love and appreciation, living in a sense of trust from sunrise to sunset. Life keeps recreating itself and presenting us with miracles every day for our senses to engage with every day. So to close my lesson today, I want to lead us in something I don't think we've ever done here before, called the Four Directions Prayer. This prayer is a sacred indigenous practice of honoring the cardinal points of east, south, west, and north, the earth and the heavens. Rooted in the medicine wheel, it asks for spiritual guidance, balance, and connection to all of creation. So would you stand and participate? I checked my compass, and this way is east. So turn this way, and you can either hold your palms open or in a namaste position. And as we go, I will say a prayer in each direction and invite you to take these words as your own, and I will turn. We face the east, where the sun rises, and the focus is new beginnings, light, and enlightenment. And I pray, Great Spirit of light, come to me out of the east with the power of the rising sun. Let there be light in my words and on my path. And now we turn to the south. We turn now and face the south, where the sun shines the hottest, and the focus is warmth and growth and relationships. Great Spirit of creation, send me the warm and soothing winds from the south. Comfort me when I am tired, and help me grow close to you in warmth and love. And we turn now and face the west, where the sun sets and the focus is introspection, letting go, and gratitude. Great Spirit of the west, teach us to be at home in the dark and in the silence. Teach us to let go, to trust in the unknown, and to end each day with peace. We turn now and face the north, where the fierce winds come from, and the focus is strength, endurance, and wisdom. Great Spirit of the north, make us courageous when the cold winds fall upon us. Give us strength, wisdom, and endurance for everything that is harsh in life. Returning to center, we look above to Father Sky and below to Mother Earth. Great Spirit, look above and guide our minds to fly high and seek wisdom. Look below to Mother Earth, where all plants find their roots, and teach us to be thankful and grounded. And so it is.